They said, oh, use it.
We will call this meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors to order. We'll rise for a moment of silent prayer, thanking the Lord that Carol Mary is able to join us after his surgery. And the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, everyone is here. Before we get to the consent agenda, I have a couple comments. At last month's meeting, we had a very spirited discussion on the referendum questions. At one point, they got a bit out of hand. And I apologize to you for not maintaining order. We are 21 different supervisors with divergent experience and opinions. We will rarely agree on everything. That being said, it was great to see the two supervisors who were at odds immediately get together and talk after the meeting. We always want to be cordial and respect each other. And I applaud you for both doing that. Also, we formed this horseshoe that we sit in so that we could all see each other. Unfortunately, that leads to people talking a little bit too much. I don't want to be the classroom teacher, but please respect the neighbors next to you so everyone can hear. Thank you. Look for a motion on the consent agenda. Supervisor Savice. Supervisor Bossert. Any comments?
Second.
Oh, I got a second already, thanks. All right, there being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Personal appearances, our first presentation is Paul from Baker Tilly.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. I believe included in your packet tonight is the annual report related to the financial audit. And I see somebody running towards me. Should I pause?
Oh, you're good.
Okay. So sounds good. So in your packet, you should have the annual financial report, which is the financial document that pulls together the 12/31/21 financial statements and required disclosures. Also, there's a reporting and insight letter that Baker Tilly issues with some required communications. And then likely a copy of the single audit has been included in there, and then a handout that summarizes those documents that I put together. That's about 8 to 10 pages. I will loosely use that document to summarize our conversation tonight. I'll share the outcomes, but to first start off, we received nothing but cooperation from management throughout all phases of the audit. We received everything that we requested. We're able to complete all necessary audit procedures, and it is a big undertaking, and just want to recognize the amount of time and effort that they put in to make it a seamless audit from our side. So thank you for that. So moving then into the results of the audit. For both the financial and single audit, we've issued an unmodified opinion, also known as a clean bill of health. This is the highest level of assurance that you can receive from your external auditor. So ultimately the outcome that you're looking to hear. So what that means in the financial audit is that all necessary disclosures have been made within that financial statement document, that all accounting principles have been adopted and applied consistently year over year, and that your statements are free of material misstatement. So again, the outcome that you're looking to hear. In relation to the single audit, also an unmodified opinion. What a single audit is a focused look at your federal and state grants that you receive. Anytime a governmental entity receives and spends more than $750,000 of federal money, you have ultimately a single audit. And so we go through and we test the compliance on those grant programs that are deemed major. And I'm happy to note that there were no compliance findings, and ultimately, again, that the outcome is what you'd expect to hear. So any questions in that portion of the audit? Otherwise, I'll share with some required communications that I need to have with you. So I'll pause briefly here. Okay. Not hearing any on the audit process steps. Then specific to some required communications that I need to have with you. Again, we received nothing but cooperation throughout the audit process. But had we had any disagreements or things that needed to be brought to your attention, you would have heard about them long before receiving that bound document. We would have reached out and communicated. So again, nothing to communicate there. Within that document, we also list out the accounting estimates that we evaluate that make their way into the financial statements. They were all clear, neutral, and non-biased, meaning again, at the end of the day, they were appropriate to be within the financial statements. We list out any non-attest services that we provide to the county, because at the end of the day, in order to provide you the opinions that we have to be able to conclude that we're independent, and happy to note that we were. And if there were any new accounting pronouncements or principles that needed to be adopted by the county this past audit cycle, they'd be listed in there in detail. But there was nothing to note of a material nature that worked its way through this year. There will be in the future though, and we'll work with management on that to make sure that everything goes smoothly with that. So with that is my prepared marks. In that highlight, there are some financial summaries that I pull out specifically highlighting 12/31 data. I don't like to go into too much depth at this point of the year because it really is stale from a decision-making standpoint. But if you are looking for just a few areas within that annual report to spend some time to look at, I have pulled out some of that financial information that I would point you to. But again, that is my prepared marks. Happy to discuss the audit process in more depth or answer any questions that you may have for me.
Anyone? I guess we have no questions.
Sounds good. Well, again, thanks for having me, and apologize if I look very dark. Unfortunately, we woke up Monday morning with water in the basement, so I'm not in my normal location with a bright light on me. But again, thanks for having me virtually.
Thank you. Our next item is Resolution 29, Commendation of Claudia Boyce. Motion from Supervisor Kelling, second from Supervisor Vaspalik.
Whereas Claudia Boyce has contributed 21 years of loyal service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas Claudia Boyce has chosen to retire from her present position of Administrative Assistant 1 in the Sheriff's Office, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend Claudia Boyce for her 21 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to her heartfelt thanks for her many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Claudia Boyce as a token of appreciation on the part of this board.
Thank you. Our next item is 5B, Resolution 30 for the Human Services Department staffing change. Is Julie presenting via Zoom? Need a motion and a second first. Motion by Mr. McCullough, second by Ms. Schulteis.
I will present if you have any questions.
Supervisor Gallitz.
Thank you, Chair. My question is just around the comments on the funding. It appears that this position, at least $33,750, is from a grant. Is that an annual reoccurring grant, or where will that equal sum come from in the future?
Sure. So the grant currently is a 5-year grant that we get from the state of Wisconsin for medication assisted treatment. That is GPR funded. So that is funding that will be in perpetuity. However, our plan is to roll this into regular operating budget in the 2024-2025 biennium budget. So for the rest of 22 and 23, it will be covered by grant dollars. But because we know that those are not guaranteed forever and ever, we will work it into the next biennium budget through operational dollars.
One additional question. I know I raised this in a previous meeting. With this position coming under Health and Human Services, could that resource be used outside of the jail, specifically in maybe some other capacity?
Do you mean that could they do other work outside of providing the service to the jail?
Right, if they have capacity.
Sure. As with any position, if we have moments of crisis or we need coverage, that position could be used, obviously in coordination, collaboration with the sheriff's office and their agreement. I also know that, as we start working and planning on our co-responder model, there's been some conversation about how this position would coordinate with that team in the future. So, I do look at this as also bringing additional depth and breadth to our team overall for needs that we might have throughout the county.
Thank you. It's good that we're looking at fungibility of resources like that where they could be used in cross departments.
And I will just share as an example to that. We're currently providing a very minimal level of service to the sheriff's department or the jail right now because they don't have that contract, and we're using other staff. And so that's just an example of how we are able to move people around when we need to provide that type of coverage. And so even with this position, as we know, with any position, you do have vacancies here and there. And so, we'll be able to continue to provide that level of service to the jail if this position were to be vacant in the future for any reason.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Supervisor Krebs?
Thank you. In the committee report, it says that currently this position is contracted. Are we can we cancel that contract to get out of that to create this position? And also, what is the existing cost of that contract?
Sure. So currently we contract with Professional Services Group for a case management position, and we have a blended and braided funding stream for that position. And so we are going to just be adding additional dollars from a different funding source for their contract and moving these dollars over to this position. The contract that we're going to be using is a state opioid response funding. And we have been underspent with that contract with the state for the last couple of years. So we have the ability to continue the contract for the case manager with a different funding source.
Was this position that we're creating a county employee, or is it going to be a position that we're contracting out with?
Yep. So this position is a county employee, which is the reason that we need approval from the county board.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll vote on this. This is a 2/3 vote requirement to pass. So. Voice vote.
You can voice vote and then we'll have, or those are not working yet. So voice vote and then we'll have individuals who vote.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, at this point,